Joined now by Andover Mayor Mike Gamache. Mayor Gamache was first elected in 2000 and is currently serving his 5th consecutive term as the mayor of Andover. Mayor Gamache, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
As cities approach the 2010 budgeting here, with all the changes that have happened in the state, with Governor Pawlenty unallotting some of the funds that go to local governments, counties, and cities, can you describe the general process? Can you kind of walk us through the process that a typical city, or maybe the city of Andover, I'm not sure how similar cities are in terms of the budgeting approach that they take. Can you walk us through the process that you go through in terms of setting the budget?
Sure. In setting the budget has been pretty much the same every year since I've been mayor. This year's been a little different because we were hit with first unallotment at the end of December, where we had to actually make up that money. And then we realized that we were probably going to have another issue coming up sometime in 2009. Our budget was set at that last meeting of 2008, so we had our budget set for 2009, figuring the state aid that we'd be receiving, and of course that was cut. But we began the process in March, usually by sitting down at a workshop with our city administrator, finance directors, to begin the discussion as to what's important to the council. What issues should the city administrator and the finance director look at as to where do we want to be? What do we want to look at for salaries? What do we want to look at for all the other different things that go on within the city and pay for the services that we provide? So we began that process, and we usually would have monthly meetings at workshops. Sometimes we'd have updates during regular council meetings as to how the budget is moving along. But of course, when May came along and the governor decided to do the unallotment, that required us to make some drastic immediate changes because now we're in the middle of our budget year. We have no way of increasing funds. We are stuck with the revenues that we had forecasted at the beginning of the year, but we were cut about $350,000 in the middle of a budget. So we had to begin to plan for what we were going to do to finish out 2009, and then what we were really in the midst of doing at that point in time was not budgeting for 2009, we were budgeting for 2010. So at the same time we had to start thinking, okay, what's going to happen in 2010? And pretty much what we decided at that point was we're going to see market value homestead credit gone. So we can't count on that money. That was the $300,000 plus $300,000 that we lost in 2009. We lost $180,000, or actually almost $200,000 at the end of 2008, and we were planning for another $400,000+ to be out of our budget in 2010.
Wow. Okay. So the unallotment process then, was that $350,000 you were talking about?
Correct.
And was that all market value homestead credit?
It was all market value homestead credit. The city of Andover no longer gets local government aid. Last year we received local government aid was 2003, and that was taken away at the last budget crisis that the state faced.
Now, I believe market value homestead credit is designed to lower property taxes, and
Correct.
It's actually reflected on our property tax statements
Correct.
that we receive each year from the county. Is that right?
That's correct.
So can you tell us a little bit more about how that's going to work down the line here?
Sure.
Will that credit still appear on our statement even though it's
Yes.
not being funded?
Yes, it will. It doesn't change for the taxpayers. Those of us who homestead our homes, live in our homes, and get that homestead credit will still get it. The whole idea of the market value homestead credit was a way for the state to help bring down property taxes at a local level. And in doing that, it was thought, well, we can, from the state standpoint, we can reduce these property taxes for the residents. At the same time, we know that the city is then losing some of their levy. If we levy, let's say our levy was $1 million and the homestead credit was in place, we were only going to be able to receive actually $900,000. So the state was filling that gap for us. Because they were doing this as a property tax relief for many years. This has gone on for, I don't know how many, but it's been many years. So when the state decided that was a place they could cut, they could instantly get that money because they didn't have to send it off to the cities. That puts a gap in your budget, obviously. And the homeowners don't see it, but the cities see it. The cities have to deal with it, and the unfortunate part is that the state legislature runs their session from January through May. So when it gets to the end of the session and they decide to make a cut, it doesn't actually fit within our budget because now we're in the middle of a budget year. So we struggle to figure out what we're going to do and how we're going to handle when you're losing that kind of money out of your budget.
Sure. Now, I read recently in the Anoka County Union that the city of Andover is looking at a potential 3% levy increase this year, so essentially a 3% increase in the rate of property taxes. Can you tell us, is that a final number, and what kind of cuts and budget adjustments have you had to make to get to that number?
Okay. It's a part of another state law that they set, that in September, the first meeting in September, you have to set a budget number, a levy number. It's not the final levy number, but you have to set one. And that number that you set in September, you cannot go above that. You can go below it, but you cannot go above it. Our decision at the time was, what could we comfortably say at this point in time, with a few months left in the year, what is our levy going to be for 2010? And we decided on 3% because the thought was, we're already dealing with all the cuts that we've made. We've reduced staff. We've had 3 layoffs in our at City Hall and Public Works. We froze salaries for the year. There was no increases, no step increases, no cost of living increases. And then we actually now have in place a program to cut hours. So when a normal pay period is 80 hours, we're down to 76. So we've cut into that for the employees as well. And in looking forward, we said this is what we have to do in 2009 because we just don't have the revenue. We have to finish out the year and figure out a way to bring the budget in balanced without any new revenue. And on top of that, not having any new revenue, we're talking about the fact that we're not really building a lot of homes. Don't have a lot of commercial development going on, except thankfully for the Anoka Police Department. The Anoka Sheriff's Department is building a building in our city, which is helpful. But we don't have a lot of other things going on just due to the economy. So we're losing those fees that we would be bringing in a normal year, those building fees. We're just not getting those. So we have no other income coming in. So we had to make those cuts. And we had to figure out how to do that to finish through 2009. So when we thought, okay, what are we going to do in 2010? We want to try to find a way to get back to full employment for our people so that they are working their 80 hours in a pay period instead of the 76 that they've gone down to. And that's why we've set it at 3. Now, there's ways to make changes in between now and the end of the year. And I fully expect that we will see a lower number than 3%. But I think for the majority of the council, it was not wise, I'll put it that way, to say we're not going to have any. We're going to say 0. There are some cities that are saying we're going to do 0. And in my mind, if I have 3 or 4 months to make that final decision by December, I want all my options on the table. I don't want to restrict the fact and say, okay, we got to get to 0. Because then, we've made cuts. We've made some severe cuts to our staffing. Over the years since I've been mayor, we've probably have about, I would say about 10% less people working in the city than we had when I started as mayor in 2000. And it's continued to go down. A lot of that was due to retirements. A lot of that was due to things we could do better, those were good things. We've been able to keep our AA bond rating in the city, which has helped us borrow money when we needed to. So I think we have a good financial ship. And we've done a lot of the things that the governor has asked us to do. All along the line, we've done the things that he's asked us to do. A lot of cities will hold on to a fund, maybe 50% of their overall budget. We've always been lower than that. As a matter of fact, last year was only 37%. Our auditing firms would tell us that's not wise. You should be at 50. For those people who don't know how city budgets work, you only get 2 payments from the state on property taxes, middle of the year and the end of the year. So you kind of have to float on your money for a while until you get that next payment. So that's why you keep a fund, so you have actual money to spend and fund your operations. We've never done that. We've never gone to the 50% like people have asked us to do. And we don't have a bunch of money just sitting out there in a rainy day fund. We've kept it tight. We've kept it at exactly what the governor has been asking us to do for the last 8 years or so.